Carolyn and welcome back to my channel, and I am excited to be bringing you another PCOS video today. I hope that these videos have been helpful. If you have PCOS or perhaps you know somebody who has, you can share this video with them. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do somewhat of a book review on the book that I finished a few weeks ago. I've been meaning to do this video for a while, but I wanted to tell you all about this book that I read called 8 Steps to Reverse Your PCOS by Dr. Fiona McCullough. This book is such a comprehensive guide to managing your PCOS by addressing the root causes of PCOS, not just sort of masking your symptoms with things like birth control. So this really addresses the root causes of what causes PCOS and how our symptoms are affected by those root causes, and I think it is a great read. Now, overall, I would say that there is a ton of information in this book. Like, it is seriously packed with information. So if you have been recently diagnosed and you're new to learning about PCOS, it might not be the book for you. I can see this being very overwhelming to someone who doesn't really know a lot of PCOS and is looking for a place to start. I have a few other maybe more simple resources that I could point you in that direction. But if you have been trying to manage your PCOS for a while and you are just looking to take it up a notch and really focus on your health in a holistic manner, then I think this book would be absolutely perfect for you. As a nurse, I really appreciated that she broke it down to like the molecular level, really diving in deep to the science and pathophysiology behind what is actually going on in our bodies and what we can do about it, both medication-wise and in more natural manners, like with supplements and diet and lifestyle changes. So let's talk about what I have learned from this book. I'm sort of going to go through each of the 8 steps and give you sort of what my takeaways were. So if you don't have the time right now, I know it's the holiday season, to go through and read the whole book, then at least you'll get sort of a snippet of what she talks about in each section. Okay, so the first step talks all about inflammation. This is sort of like the most important step, which I think is why she put it first. So inflammation is a hallmark part of the PCOS syndrome. Now, chronic inflammation is so destructive to our bodies. It can worsen our egg quality, it can attack our organs, and it can even cause mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. Now, with women with PCOS specifically, what I've learned is that inflammation can not only increase our testosterone, but it also is one of the causes of our insulin resistance, and those two together are what are responsible for the majority of our PCOS symptoms. Now, there are 2 markers of inflammation that you can get tested with a blood test from your doctor. They are called the hsCRP and the ESR. You can get those measured and sort of get a ballpark about what your inflammation levels look like, and you can actually trend them over the months and years to see how your inflammation levels are coming down, and making sure that all these important steps that you're trying to implement to make your overall health better, then you can see those inflammation levels trending down, and you'll know that what you're doing is actually working. All right, so what are we gonna do about this chronic inflammation that we have? So the majority of what she recommends has to do with our diet. Now, since insulin increases these inflammatory markers, we want to eat a diet that focuses on lowering our insulin levels. So what that means is we want to avoid inflammatory foods such as dairy and gluten. We want to eat a diet low in sugar and focus on whole foods as much as possible. Now, I have done an entire dedicated video to both why I'm gluten-free and why I'm dairy-free and how that affects our hormones, so you can check those out for more information. And also, if you feel inclined, you could also do food allergy testing just to make sure that you are not eating foods that your body is having a negative reaction to, because that is definitely going to increase your inflammation levels if you're eating foods that you're actually having mild or maybe even severe allergies to that you don't even realize. Now, in this chapter, she also has a ton of suggestions for supplements that you can take to help combat that chronic inflammation. However, there are just way too many to discuss or even just list on the screen. So if you're looking for specific suggestions, I would suggest referencing the book. Chapter 2 is all about insulin resistance, which is so common in up to 80% of women with PCOS. Now, our bodies are really smart. They know that having a high blood sugar is really bad for us. It promotes inflammation. So when it recognizes that our blood sugar is trending up, it signals our pancreas to release insulin. Now, this insulin is going to pull the sugar from our bloodstream and store it for energy. Primarily, this happens in the liver or in our muscles, but when those two systems are maxed out, it ends up getting stored as triglycerides. And this is why women with PCOS tend to have elevated triglycerides and cholesterol. Now, this is really bad for our heart health, so we definitely want to manage this. Unfortunately, this leads to fat being stored, which under normal circumstances would secrete a hormone called leptin, which lets our brains know that we are full and we need to stop eating. Now, unfortunately, women with PCOS have excess leptin, and we develop something called leptin resistance, which tells our brains that we're not full and we need to keep on eating. This leads to a vicious cycle of overeating despite having plenty of glucose stored, and then we end up storing excess fat. Now, all of that combined with our chronic inflammation leads to insulin resistance. This means that our pancreas needs to produce more insulin than normal to drive that glucose into our cells to be used for energy. This leads to an overall elevated insulin level, which stimulates our ovaries to produce excess testosterone and androgens. Now, if you tend to have a larger waistline, difficulty losing weight, skin tags, or have darkened skin behind your neck or armpits, those are all signs that you might have insulin resistance. Now, we definitely want to manage our insulin resistance so that it doesn't turn into full-blown diabetes. So what can we do to help improve our insulin resistance? Now, diet and lifestyle are paramount for managing insulin resistance. And to be honest, you actually don't even need that much exercise to see a positive benefit. In the book, Dr. McCullough says all you really need is at least 75 minutes per week, which averages to just over 10 minutes a day. So that's something that all of us can start to implement, and then you can work your way up from there. Now, metformin is a very commonly prescribed medication that helps improve insulin resistance. However, for many, the side effects are intolerable, but luckily there is another alternative, and that is inositols. This is a naturally occurring supplement that you can take that is excellent for not only improving insulin resistance, but also helping to restore normal ovulation, which many women with PCOS struggle with. Now, I like to use the product called Ovasitol because it has the exact ratio of inositols that are naturally occurring in your body. I also like to supplement with vitamin D. The deficiency in vitamin D has been directly associated with insulin resistance, and so many of us are deficient, not just people with PCOS, but society in general. So definitely go ahead and get your level checked and supplement if needed. Chapter 3 talks all about our adrenals. So the adrenal glands secrete hormones in response to stress. Now, these are hormones like cortisol or androgens such as DHEA. So cortisol is a hormone that shuts down non-vital processes within our body in response to stress. Now, this is a great thing if you're being chased by a serial killer and your body needs to focus on putting all of its energy towards making you run as fast as you can. But we don't want our bodies to perceive that we are under this type of stress on a daily basis. Now, women with PCOS have higher than normal levels of cortisol, and this can make several of our hormones work less effectively, like our thyroid hormones, estrogen, and progesterone. Now, this can lead to a term called adrenal fatigue, which basically means our adrenals can't keep up with the demand, and this can lead to a variety of symptoms. So women with PCOS can have something called adrenal fatigue, or they can actually have adrenal hyperactivity. So in the book, Dr. McCullough suggests a ton of supplements that you can take to help balance your adrenal hormones, but honestly, managing your stress is going to be crucial. Things like meditation, yoga, journaling, prayer, mindfulness, and even therapy are amazing stress management techniques that you can implement into your daily routine. The next chapter is all about managing our androgens. Now, androgens such as testosterone or DHEA are not just for men. They are crucial for women's health as well, but in the correct amounts. If we have an excess of androgens, it can cause things like hirsutism, which is unwanted hair on our face or our bodies, or androgenic alopecia, which is a male patterned baldness. Now, there are some medications like spironolactone that have been shown to decrease androgens, but simply drinking spearmint or green tea is an easy way to lower your androgen levels, and it's something you can incorporate into your daily routine. Hormonal birth control is something that is very commonly prescribed to override those excess androgen symptoms, but those come with a lot of risks like blood clots and even breast cancer. Now, the next chapter talks about addressing hormonal imbalances, and in this chapter, she explains the entire menstrual cycle as well as all the hormones that are involved in that. Now, women with PCOS often have irregular or even absent periods, and there are a wide variety of supplements and lab testing that she suggests that are worth looking into in this chapter. In the next chapter, she talks all about balancing your thyroid. Now, hypothyroidism is extremely common, and it basically means you have an underactive thyroid. Now, in the developed world, the most common type is something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where your body actually attacks its own thyroid, making it underactive. And you should definitely check out if you have any of these symptoms that I have listed here on the screen. That's an indication that you might have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and you should go get checked for it. Now, having a low thyroid can worsen insulin resistance, so it's very important to have a full thyroid workup if you have PCOS, not just a TSH level, which is what is commonly prescribed and checked by most doctors. Now, depending on the severity, you might need medication to help balance it, or you could use natural supplements such as iodine, but definitely talk to your doctor about this. The seventh step is all about creating a healthy environment. And in this chapter, she discusses how we can remove toxins from our environment that cause hormonal disruptions. Now, BPA is a major one because of its effect on estrogen, but there's also parabens and phthalates in our skincare and hair care that should be avoided, along with pesticides. Now, there are many suggestions in the book on how to lead a less toxic life, and that includes purchasing organic food whenever possible, or at least the foods that are on the Dirty Dozen list, purchasing meat that doesn't include hormones, purchasing phthalate and paraben-free skincare products and hair care products, and also minimizing the use of pesticides in our home, lawn, and gardens. Now, the very last step talks about eating a balanced diet. Now, in this chapter, she discusses in great detail the ins and outs of the insulin index. Now, most people, or at least some of you, might be familiar or somewhat familiar with the glycemic index. And what that is it tells you the effect on your blood glucose that a certain food will have. Now, the insulin index, similarly, will tell you the effect a food has on the insulin levels in your blood. So it's probably no surprise to you that eating something very high in sugar or carbohydrates will cause a huge spike in your insulin levels. But it might surprise you that there are a lot of proteins that do as well. So reading up and becoming familiar with the insulin index is going to be a wonderful way that you can create a balanced PCOS-friendly meal. If you're looking for a very quick and simple guide on what you should be eating if you have PCOS, then you are going to want to incorporate a ton of non-starchy vegetables into your diet. Not only are they very low on the insulin index, but they also rank very high on the satiety index, meaning that they're going to fill you up, keep you full for a long time. Now, starchy vegetables are a great source of carbohydrates for women with PCOS, and those should be sort of your main source of carbohydrates rather than consuming grains. However, they still have to be consumed in moderation due to their, somewhat moderate to high level on the insulin index. Now, things like red meat, fish, poultry, and eggs are great sources of protein and should be incorporated into your diet as a way to get your protein and also fill you up and keep you full for a long time. And things like sugar and sweeteners should probably be avoided at all costs. Now, like I mentioned before, I have entirely dedicated videos about why gluten and dairy should be two food groups that are removed completely from your diet. So I'll make sure those are linked in the description box so you can go ahead and check those out. But that is just like a quick nitty-gritty basics on what a PCOS friendly diet should be pretty much consisted of. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing a little bit about what was included in this book, 8 Steps to Reverse Your PCOS, that you found it interesting. Maybe you're going to consider picking up a copy so that you can get a lot more information about all of these topics and hopefully be on the road to leading a more healthy lifestyle and managing your PCOS like a boss. So overall, I thought that this book is a wonderful resource, definitely worth the read, worth picking up. I got mine from the library. However, like I mentioned, it is extremely thorough, very detail oriented. There's a ton of information. So if you are a beginner, just newly diagnosed with PCOS, you might want to hold off a little bit until you have a little bit more of a grasp on some of the basic concepts of what PCOS is and how we should be managing it. But again, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. Leave me a comment if you have any questions whatsoever, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
'Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me want